Imagine two employees start their careers on the same day, equally talented, equally ambitious. 10 years later, one is in leadership while the other has slowly fallen behind. This story quietly plays out in workplaces across the world. And International Women's Day might be the perfect moment to ask why. Hello, and welcome to HRTechify, the podcast where I talk about the intersection of people, leadership, HR, and the future of work. And before I begin, I want to take a moment to congratulate women everywhere for their resilience, leadership, and the incredible contributions that they make across workplaces, families, and communities. Today is International Women's Day, and organizations across the world will celebrate women through LinkedIn posts, leadership panels, appreciation messages, and sometimes even cupcakes in the office cafeteria, team lunches, or even team dinners. And let me say this, that is absolutely great to see. Recognizing and celebrating women's contribution is important. But alongside the celebration, it's worth asking a slightly uncomfortable question. Are organizations truly empowering women, or are we simply celebrating them once a year? Because when we look at the data from leading research institutions like McKinsey and Lean In, the reality of women in the workplace becomes more complex. So let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Over the past decade, organizations have invested heavily in diversity and inclusion initiatives. Awareness has increased, conversations have improved, and policies have evolved. But progress in leadership representation has been slower than expected. According to the McKinsey Women in the Workplace report, women hold only about 29% of C-suite leadership roles globally. Now, this means that more than 70% of top corporate leadership positions are still held by men. But this gap does not suddenly appear at the top. It actually begins much earlier in the career journey. In fact, research shows that for every 100 men promoted to their first managerial role, only about 93 women receive the same promotion. Researchers, in fact, refer to this as the broken rung, because when fewer women move into their first leadership roles, the leadership pipeline slowly begins to narrow. And over time, this affects the representation at senior levels. So, this raises an important question. If women enter organizations in large numbers, why does the leadership pipeline shrink over time? Now, it's important to acknowledge that careers are shaped by many personal and professional circumstances and choices. At different stages of life, some professionals may step back from work or prioritize other responsibilities. But organizations must always align career growth with contribution, performance, and opportunities. However, the workplace systems and structures can also influence how careers evolve over time. One factor which is often discussed in research is the sponsorship gap. Mentors provide advice, but sponsors go on a step further. They actually advocate for you when promotion and leadership decisions are being made. And research shows that not all professionals receive equal access to this kind of visibility and advocacy. Another factor is career interruptions. Now, across many societies, responsibilities related to childcare, elder care, and family management can affect career opportunity. Yet, many career models are still designed around continuous and uninterrupted career progression. Now, this means professionals who take career breaks often find it hard to re enter the leadership pipeline. Now, there is also a broader conversation about how leadership is defined. Historically, many organizations had a narrow view of what leadership looked like. But modern workplaces increasingly recognize that effective leadership comes in many styles, from strategic thinking and decisiveness to collaboration, empathy, and even the ability to build strong teams. Now, as organizations evolve, leadership expectations are becoming more inclusive and adaptable. The other challenge that I have personally read about is the challenge of burnouts. In fact, a recent workplace study suggests that nearly 60% of senior women leaders report experiencing frequent burnout, which can affect retention and long term career trajectories. So, clearly, the issue is not capability. More often than not, it comes down to structures, systems, and even workplace culture. And at the same time, career growth ultimately requires both organizational support and individual ownership of performance and development. So, if these are some of the barriers that exist in workplaces today, then the next question becomes, what can organizations actually do about it? Now, real progress requires moving beyond symbolic celebrations and focusing on strong talent systems. First, the organizations need to promote promotion transparency, which means regularly reviewing promotion data and ensuring opportunities are fair and merit based. Second, companies should build sponsorship programs that ensure high potential talent, including women, receive visibility and leadership opportunities. Third would be that organizations must create flexible work models that do not penalize careers. Because flexibility should be in such a way that it supports productivity and growth and not limit advancement. And finally, companies should focus on designing returnship programs that helps experienced professionals re-enter the workforce after career breaks. Now, I know most of these things have started, but they are still far from the level we would expect organizations to do it. Because, I ultimately losing skilled talent simply due to rigid career structures is not fair. It's also bad for the business. So this brings us back to the question we started with today. What does it really mean to celebrate Women's Day at work? And perhaps the answer lies in moving beyond symbolic recognition and focusing on building fair and high performing workplaces. Because ultimately, great workplaces are not built by lowering standards. They are built by ensuring that opportunity, recognition, and leadership pathways are fair and accessible to everyone. So, this Women's Day, while organizations celebrate achievements and progress, it might be worth asking a deeper question. What are we doing beyond the celebration? Because real inclusion is not built through one day of recognition. It is built through fair systems, inclusive leadership, and everyday decisions that shape the workplace culture. And when organizations truly empower people to succeed, they don't just create fairness, they unlock better leadership, stronger innovation, and impactful business outcomes. If you enjoyed this episode of HRTechify, do share it with your colleagues, managers, and leaders. And remember, the future of work is not just about technology. It is about creating workplaces where everyone will have the opportunity to thrive. Because the real test of inclusion is not what we say on Women's Day. It's the decisions we make on the other 364 days of the year. See you on the next episode of HRTechify.